All right, Shauna. So, our topic for today is the things we thought running a business would be versus what it actually is. So, I don't know about you, but before I started my business, I had this fantasy that running a business meant freedom, creativity, and coffee shops all day long. But that was not exactly the reality. And with this episode, I was thinking we could spill the expectations that we had before starting our businesses and the hilarious and sometimes painful realities of what it really is.
Right.
Shauna, I'd love to know before you started your business, which granted for you was a longer ago than it was for me. Do you remember what you thought it would be, what that fantasy was that drove you to start your business?
The freedom of not one answering to anyone.
Yes.
And when I say answering to anyone, I'm not opposed to having, superiors, people that is over you, bosses that you have to report to and report stuff. I'm not opposed to that. When I say answer to anyone, I mean like having somebody that just constantly nitpick, somebody that's constantly breathing down your neck, somebody who just has unrealistic expectations, and also someone who just doesn't understand that life is life and there's a balance. I have young children, right? And so it's like when you have a sick child and you have to not come into work because now you're sitting in the ER and then you feel like you have to sell that. It's like I'm convincing you that I'm actually at the doctor and I need to maybe take a picture or something to show you that that's where I'm at. And that's what I don't like about having to answer to someone. I should be able to tell you, hey, I can't come in today. I'm sick. My kid's sick. The sky's falling. And you should be able to say, okay, it's okay, get your work done tomorrow and be accepting of that. But in my past, I felt like I had to sell it and sell it real hard. And even then, I felt like it was just like, it wasn't well received, or, it wasn't like, okay, I understand, take the time you need, leave
No.
early, come in late. It was more like, well, like I'm being chastised.
Chastised. Yeah, like you need permission like you're a
Right.
child to take care of your
Exactly.
child.
Got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
I remember this time early on in my career, and I had my daughter when I was young. So when I started my first job out of college, she was 4. And one day she was at daycare and they called me because she had hurt herself. There was this heavy toy that like fell on her finger and it was this emergency. My child was injured and I couldn't find my manager. They weren't, you know, around. And so I left to go take care of her. And then I took care of her and then I came back. It wasn't, as big as they made it out to be. Her finger was like cut on the side and she was crying. But I ran as her mom. I was worried, you don't know how big it is. And when I got back, I was like in big trouble because I had rushed out to take care of my daughter because it's not like I didn't want to tell my manager. And it's not like I was gone that long. I took care of an emergency with my daughter, came back, and I was in trouble. And here I am, this 22-year-old, my first job, out of college, and I'm being yelled at for running to take care of my daughter who was injured. And that was a long time ago, and it took me years to finally make the change to start my own business, and lots of instances like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's one of the things I don't like, the reporting to someone. But now, being on the flip side of being your own boss, you technically still have to report to someone. At least in my field, in my business, I have to report to people. I mean, they're not my bosses in terms of they can tell me when I can't take off work or what time I can leave or come in. I don't answer to them in that sense, but I do answer to them in terms of they're my clients. And so when they call or email and they're questioning something on their financials, or they're, hey, can you get this done? I need this done within the hour. You're technically my boss because you're still giving me directions of stuff to do. But the good thing is I also have the freedom of saying, I'm sorry, I can't. Not today. Come back tomorrow. Or I can do that. Whereas when I was an employee, you drop everything and you crawl on the
Everything.
ground for your mercy and beg,
Right.
to do what your boss says to do. So now, yes, I don't. I still respond to someone and I still report to someone, but not in the sense like I used to as an employee. So it's a bit different. And I prefer the way I have it right now because I have the
Right.
freedom of telling you no. And here's an example of something that happened the other day. And I know we talked about this on one of the last episodes, was that I have a client who everything's an emergency. The sky is always falling. I mean, the roof is always burning. There's always something going on. I told you the other day I was in the doctor with my daughter. She was sick. I pulled her out of school and I went, and she was emailing and calling and emailing and calling. And the taglines are always urgent. I need to talk to you now. It's important. And then she'll text, she'll call, and she'll also send an email as if to say I can't get one of them. So she's covering her bases. And she'll blow up my phone. Hey, call me right now. It's urgent. We need to talk. This is important. And I emailed back, I know I texted back and I said, give me an hour. Because of course I'm waiting to be seen by the doctor. My priority was not you. And of course, like every other client, that when you have a request, you email it to client services and someone on the team will take care of you. But no, she comes to me every time. So I told her in an hour, I call you back. Of course, I checked the email. It was not urgent, as with everything else. It was just, hey, I have a new client and I want to send them an invoice. Again, where is the fire in that? And I responded, and the email she sent me directly, I forwarded to client service and I said, can someone please, and I copied her, can someone please take care of this in the future? Please direct all your concerns to your client services email because I'm not going to drop everything to answer to you. So then there's those kinds of people. And I like the freedom of answering to you because you're sort of my boss because I work for you, but also being able to tell you no and put my foot down and mean no. And you have to accept that I mean no. So I like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's one of the realities that you might not fully grasp before you own your own business. You still are accountable to people, but you do have more flexibility in the way that you hold yourself accountable to them because you set the expectations, you set the boundaries. And, if people push back, you do have the ability to cancel a client,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yourself, that's your own decision
Yeah.
versus like having to get your boss's approval, who gets their boss's approval, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, and who call you up in front of the entire department and yelling and screaming at you in front of the entire department. Oh my god, I am still traumatized. Let me tell you this. Don't mean to veer off topic, but it's kind of sort of on topic. When I was like early 20s, right? I was working at an airline. And I
Mhm.
won't say their name. I was working at an airline and I worked in the training department. So my job was training customer service agents and flight crew. And, I worked in that department. And I remember the head of that department, she was a British woman. Um, and she just has this whole Brit dry humor, dryness about her, this whole Brit thing. Um, She thought she gave me a file. She has her own secretary. She gave her secretary a file, but somehow she thought she gave it to me because I was the trainer. And she called me and asked me for it, and I told her, "No, you didn't give this to me." And I bled. I how many pints of blood telling this woman, "You did not give me this file." And she screamed at me. I was so embarrassed, screamed at me in front of the entire department, belittled me, put me down. I was crying. I mean, I was young then. I mean,
Yeah.
try that now and you see what you get.
Right.
You
Yeah.
cannot try that with me now. But I was young and impressionable. And this woman screamed at me in front of the entire department. I was crying. I was distraught to the point where other employees were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I feel bad for you, whatever." And then the worst part is her secretary went to her and be like, "Oh, yeah, no, you accidentally gave it to me instead of her." And you think she would come to me and apologize? Oh, no, that didn't happen. That never happened. And I lived with that. And that was like, what, how many, over 20 something years ago? And I still remember that. It was just
Yeah.
so heartbreaking how she treated me. And yeah, so being at the mercy of bosses, it's not a good feeling when you feel like your
No.
life is in the palm of their hands and they can just snatch your soul away from you at any time.
Yeah. Those things add up and they harden you. And I do feel like we all have at some point you're going to be yelled at if you have a corporate career. And I think my story happened later on, which might be why I opened a business later on, because those things do make you think twice about what you're doing with your life, because they make you feel so small, like you're not even human. And
Oh my god, you're
yeah,
traumatizing me all over again. I'm having whiplash.
I know, I know. I'll tell my story too. So mine was back in 2020. And so it was
Recent.
only 5 years ago and wasn't that young, but it was the first time someone screamed at me and I was in shock. So, you think back to those moments and you're like, "Oh, I should have said this. I should have done this." But I didn't do any of that. I was just kind of in shock. And then it stays with you when you don't react the way you wanted to react in that moment. But I was so I had my boss who is not the person who yelled at me. And they were on the executive team and there was another executive on that team who, for some reason, they weren't even like in the same field as us. They met with me on the Thursday before I went on a week-long vacation. And they gave me, I'm already like getting anxious telling the story, but they gave me all these instructions on what I should be doing in my job, which kind of changed everything around. And I took notes and I shared it with my boss before I went on vacation for feedback. Like, should I actually make these changes? Because you are my boss, they aren't my boss. Anyway, so I went on vacation and there was a meeting set for 9 a.m. the morning I came back. And it was with my manager, this person, and one of their employees. And we got on the call and it seems like he's getting on to my manager about all these things that haven't been done. It, and I shouldn't have said anything, but I was trying to defend my manager on one of the topics I knew about. And so I was like, "Oh, well, we actually did this." And then he said, "But this isn't being done," and just started screaming at me about all these things that had nothing to do with my job and I'd never been responsible for or told to do. But it was probably things he had talked to with the executive team with my boss, potentially, probably couldn't have come from nowhere. And my boss stays silent. His employee stays silent, which, okay, while he screamed at me for the rest of the call. And then and I said I didn't say anything. We ended the call and, I talked to my boss about it after and how upset I was. And her comment to me was like, "Well, I talked to him and you didn't make any of the changes he asked you to make." Like, what do you say to that? Where do you go from there? And so from that point on, you lose your motivation. You don't care about that job anymore. And I did end up leaving a couple of months later because where do you go from there? You have a boss that throws you under the bus and you have unclear expectations from who knows who. Like, who am I? What do I even do?
The thing is, a lot of people become bosses to be bosses and not to be a leader and not to be someone that people can learn from and grow with and grow as a result of. It's more, let me be your boss because I need to have that power and that strength so I can feel valued and I can just have someone do what I say because, well, I'm the boss. That attitude of just being the boss and not being a leader. I think there's two different things there. Yeah. A
I
boss
agree.
tells you what to do and a leader shows you what to do. So,
Yes.
yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
very.
A leader takes the blame. They'll
Mhm.
take the heat and protect their team from it. But a boss is someone who is trying to get ahead and they'll throw you under the bus so that they can maintain their position.
Of course. That is so true. I have so many experiences with that. And it's traumatizing. And so that brings us right back into the circle of what you were talking about, like what you thought, being your own boss was versus what it actually is. We both can agree that we wanted to just not have somebody to report to, but you technically still are reporting to somebody, but it's still easier than being a corporate world and reporting to someone where you never know what attitude you're going to get, what response you're going to get. At least with me, and I'm sure you can relate, when you have clients, you kind of sort of know what you're getting because they have this mutual respect that you're a
Right.
business owner, I'm a business owner, we're here to collaborate. As opposed to in
Hmm.
a corporate environment, it's not a collaboration, it's more of a dictatorship. You do what I
Yeah.
say you do when you do it because I have your soul in my hands and I can snatch it out at any time. Versus, my clients and I, we're it's a mutual partnership. We collaborate. We have meetings, regularly. We talk about how I can help you grow your business. I talk about what I can do to serve you and not as an employee over in Mr. Corporate world where it's just like, oh, my boss is coming and I have to scurry on my lunch because 1 minute over my lunch break and I feel like I'm going to get chastised.
Right.
No.
Yeah. I
All right.
I completely agree. Mutual respect. It's
Yeah.
really important. I think that is definitely one of the reasons I started my business
Yeah.
because you want respect. Everyone deserves respect in the work that they do.
Oh, yeah. And also to feel validated. When I do something good for my clients and they come back and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got approved," or it just makes me feel good. I feel like I got approved. I feel like I
Yeah.
won.
Yeah.
Versus when you're in Mr. Corporate world and you put all this effort into this huge presentation and you give it to the boss and they take it and run with it and now it's theirs. Because
Hmm.
you did the work, but they get the credit because they're the head
All the time.
all
Yes.
the time.
Absolutely. All the time. Yeah.
All right. So what else do we
Um,
got?
so I also really like going back to the flexibility factor. I really like that you can work your hours around your most productive times. You don't have to clock into a 9 to 5 and just show your presence versus we're focused on output, right? So sometimes, I can work at night and then sleep in the next day and get everything done instead of having to work shut down at 5 when I haven't completed everything so that I can get up early the next morning. Instead, I can work until I'm done, knowing that I can still sleep my 8 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree
Yeah.
like that. The expectation, when I was in corporate America, it was more like, yeah, well, I have to abide to the standard rules of what time to come in. I remember even if you were like 3 minutes past your clocking time and you have so many 3 minutes of clocking in late before you get called to the carpet, like, oh yeah, you've clocked in 3 minutes late for the past 4 days. It's like such a big deal. But I'm being a business owner, I clock in whenever I want to. And so the expectation over there for me that I set for myself is get the work done.
Right.
2 a.m., 2 p.m. The work is done. The work is done. That's what's important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I do remember it was more about just the hours that you're sitting at that desk and nobody cared what you were actually doing.
As long
Nobody
as
cared.
they saw you.
Yeah. That's so weird.
Yep. They saw you. You were there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the things we thought running a business would be versus what it actually is when it comes to money.
Ooh.
What did you think your money situation would look like before you started your business?
Well, I'm broke now.
Here's it.
As an employee, I had lots of money. And I think we talked about this one time. I had lots of money because my job was to just go to work and sit at my desk. Whether I was doing something or not is beside the point. The point was I was there and
Right.
I got
You showed
paid.
up.
I showed up, I got paid. And so, yes, I had money. Being a business owner, I have to chase money. You know, it's the constant chase. Like, I thought being a business owner, I would have the clients, everything would be seamless, the money would come rolling in, I will be making lots of it. For example, I might be an employee making $1, and I thought coming over to being a business owner, I'll be making $100. So I'll be making way more. Well, it's kind of flip flop.
Yeah.
It's actual reverse. Like, you
Yeah.
make less money. And anybody who's a business owner and they say, "Oh, I make tons of money," that might be your top line, right? Because then you don't even think about all the expenses and everything that comes out of that. We care about the bottom line, right? So if your bottom line is showing that you're broke, you're broke. So as an employee, I thought. man, I need to get out of here. I could be making way more money. I could do this, I could do that. But then I quickly learned all that money you made, all that revenue that's sitting up here that looks so pretty, by the time you're done paying employees, people, rent, vendors, customers, everybody, you're like, wait, what happened? You're left with nothing
Right. Right. Or negative.
or negative.
Negative quite a bit.
Yes. Yes. So that was one of the things that I knew, I sort of knew going into, but the reality of it hits differently when it actually happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember before I started my business, I was looking at my billable rate when I was working for a company. I'm like, this is the rate that the company is making. I could be making that rate with all
Right.
these clients. But
Right.
it's the work is in getting the clients. There's so much work in just in getting clients and, clients don't stay forever, so you have to get new clients. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
You're a salesperson like around the clock. And then
Yeah.
you have to also serve the clients that you have, which is the job you were doing before.
Yeah.
So our
You
job
have
is
to
like
work.
tripled for a third, well, maybe what we were
Yeah.
making. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can agree on that one.
Definitely. But it is, at the end of the day, the freedom and flexibility that keeps me. I mean, what's the trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Would you take less money for more freedom and flexibility? And for me, yes. I mean, that's why I'm still here.
Yeah. For me too, I feel like want I want to keep my flexibility over my money. I guess I could make my money work if I have my flexibility, but I couldn't make my flexibility work if I had a lot more money because I need to be able to get up and go at the drop of a dime. I told you my daughter was sick and I had to grab her out of school to take her to the doctor. If I was still commuting into an office and had to do that, she'd be dead by the time I get to her. I mean, God forbid. But by the time I make it to that school, she'd have been dead already. So school's like literally 2-minute drive from my house. So I can just be there in a split second. So I would not give that up. And on top of that, she is a sports fanatic. She's in gymnastics, she does all this stuff. And so there's always some gymnastics thing going on. And so I have the ability during the day, during the evenings, to be able to just take her to a meet and just take her somewhere and do it. No boss is going to let me out of a job 3 times a week to go to a gymnastics meet. Are you crazy?
Right. Exactly. So you would just not be able to be there. How would she get there too?
Exactly. She
She
wouldn't
wouldn't
even
be able.
be up doing it because I
Oh,
wouldn't be able to even take her. My husband wouldn't be able to get to be able to take her either. So somebody has to do it. So yeah, I wouldn't trade it off really. I like my flexibility to be able to go when I want to go. And on top of that, I do volunteer a lot too with some social organizations that have galas and they have planning meetings and they have this and that. And so I'm able to just, hey, let's have a meeting at 10 a.m., at your office and plan this thing. I couldn't do that as an employee. They'd be like, no, we're
we
paying.
couldn't do this. Yeah, we couldn't do this podcast right now if we were
That
employees.
guy would still be at the clock.
Yeah, yeah, we would be.
Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't trade that off.
Yeah. Yeah, me neither. And my dog agrees. I don't know how people have pets and work 9 to 5, but my dog is here by my feet. I don't know what he would do if I was gone all day.
I know, I know. The freedom, that's the trade-off. That's the trade-off for me. And I wouldn't, and doubling back on the initial question we had was it what I thought it would be? And yes, when it comes to the freedom, yes, I
Yes, me
envision
too.
having more freedom as a business owner than an employee. And yes, that rings true and that is fulfilling, having that freedom.
Yes, I agree. The freedom definitely meets expectations while the money doesn't.
Right.
And for me, I'm almost 2.5 years in. You're 8 years in. So,
Yeah.
take that for what it is. So, next topic, let's talk about the fun factor of owning your own business. Socialization. How fun is it? How fun are your days now versus when you worked in an office?
Well, when I worked in an office, it was fun with air quotes.
Yeah,
And when I say fun, I mean like I had coworkers, I had people that I connected with. We would have lunches. We would have like after work drinks. That's sort of fun stuff. It was fun in that sense, like connecting on a people level. And so that can't say I missed that because I kind of still do have that as a business owner. But as a business owner, I still have the fun factor because I still get to go out. I network with other business owners. We have mixers, we have luncheons in the day, whether it's with like maybe a chamber of commerce or just some type of business organization. They have luncheons, they have business after hours. So I still get that networking feel of just connecting with people. I know for me, the Chamber of Commerce is that's around me. They have events, even on the weekends. They have different type of events, not just for business owners, but you can bring your family, you can bring your kids and pets, and just tons of things. And so the fun is still there. As far
good.
as working in an office, I might be alone in terms of that because, as a business owner, you kind of, there's this loneliness to it because you make all the decisions yourself. You kind of like feed off of your own self. So you really don't have a team of people to quote unquote have fun with in that sense. But I would say for both of them, being an employee and a business owner, the fun level is kind of like the same, except as a business owner, I'm able to do more fun things. Whereas as an employee, I'm bounded to the office and the office idea of what fun is.
Right, right. So for me, I haven't joined the Chamber of Commerce, but I think I will now. And I'm still trying to get my bearings around the networking thing. But I definitely recommend not starting a business as your first job because my best friends for the longest time come from my first job, working in an office where we were doing happy hours
Mhm.
and we were, you know, together all day, every day. And I formed really strong friendships there that I wouldn't give up for the world. And those friendships stay with me now when I am working as a business owner all by myself, lonely, and need someone to bounce ideas off of, or need someone to come visit me so we can have a weekend in Atlantic City and just, decompress. So I am glad I did work in an office for the years that I did, develop those friendships because those are necessary. You need to have like your real life friends to just keep you going. But now I have fun because I can control who I'm spending my time with, right? In an office, you can't control who you
Yeah, the
spend all
creepy
day
guy at the
every day
water
with.
cooler. Why you don't like hanging out with the creepy guy at the water cooler?
And the mandatory birthdays and pizza parties and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you're like the executive assistant who has to coordinate all those events too, which I was, which was it's kind of fun. I like event planning, but yeah, so you control the fun but you have more like obligation if you're going to do something social. So and sometimes I have trouble breaking free of the work to, add social activities to my life, but I have to make that effort now versus before when it was just around me and people were like, we're going to happy hour after work. I haven't done happy hour in forever. I do kind of miss that. Maybe I need to figure that out.
Well, then that's why you should
Yeah.
join like a chamber of commerce. They do have what they call business after hours. It's kind of like an happy hour, but it's called business after hours. So you just kind of do it like after 5 o'clock and drink and
Yeah.
whatever if you
I'm
join.
writing that down. I'm going to join it. Definitely. Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
All right. So the last thing I wanted to touch on for this topic was our support system.
Mm.
What did you think your support system would be starting your own business? What was it at the corporate world versus now and having your own business?
Well, by far, the corporate world was better and stronger for me because, I might have been in the accounting department. And so there's a bunch of us, you might have the CFO and the controller and then you have the staff accountant. So there's like a few of us in that one department. And so you have people to ask questions. Hey, how do you do this? Or, hey, can you do this for me while I go take care of something else? You have that person to lean on to do stuff. Starting a business, you kind of having to do that all on your own. And then when I first started, I was doing everything on my own. I had to figure things out on my own. Whether I knew it or not, I had to figure it out. So that was a little bit trying, just not having that support that I was used to having and just kind of feeling alone and lonely because nobody was there to help me. But fast forward now years into business and just having a team now, I can say, hey, somebody take care of this or somebody take care of that. And I have people that I can just put things off on or get feedback on. Hey, how do you propose we do this for this client? They come in and these clients, sometimes they have the weirdest requests ever in how they do things. It might be the way they're used to doing it, but it's not the most efficient way. And so I have a team that I can ask, hey, how do you think we should do this going forward to make it more efficient for us? Because we don't have time to waste every month just doing mundane things. So I like that now. But initially, yeah, I can see as a new business owner not having anyone and you have to just kind of like figure it out on your own and just don't have that support. So by far, thinking as a new business owner, by far having a support in a corporate environment would be better and much stronger because you have that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When I started my business is the same time we met because we both did that course to get certified as government contractors. And that helped me because I met you and it was kind of like a built-in group of people as I was figuring out how to start my business. So I definitely recommend like take a course, get a certification, join some kind of group where you can learn with other people on it was so helpful. And just even talking to you, talking about figuring out the systems to support your business as you're launching. That was a lot of work and a lot of trial and error. But yeah, the support system, you have to go out and find it when you have your own business versus when you're working in an office, you can just turn around to the person behind you who's watching what you're doing on your
Yeah.
computer screen.
Looking down your neck, like, what are you doing?
I had someone this one time walk by me, and when I was moving, like I was clearing out my screen, my desktop, because I had a bunch of icons on it. And they walked by me and then were like, "What are you doing? It looks like you're just staring at your screen and pretending to work." So I couldn't even clean up my desktop without somebody commenting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the support system, it's really what you make it. And that is also why I advise people to, before you start your own business, be an expert in your field because you're going to have to rely on your own knowledge. That's all
Mm.
you have. And also already have your support system, people you can lean on, your friends that will help you with your business in their own spare time. Because I have friends like that that are invaluable because you don't have money to pay everyone to help you in the ways that you really need support. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well,
All
this is
right.
a topic.
That was a good topic. I feel like I got a lot off my chest there. All right. So, there you go. The things we thought running a business would be versus what it actually is for us now at almost 2.5 years in and at 8 years in.
Yeah. And guys, thank you again for joining us in another episode. And we look forward to offloading on you again with all the things you need to know as a business owner.
Yes. Thank you for being our therapist. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.